happy? Are we happy and effective? Consultation with leading experts in the field makes it perfectly clear that we are all...
Hello, and welcome to Boxcutter. In this video, I'm just going to be telling you a little bit about Boxcutter, how to get started with it, just on a basic level, in Blender 2.8. So right now, we are using Boxcutter version 702, which was released 12/2/2018. You can start Boxcutter by clicking the logo in the T panel, or you can use the classic Alt-W hotkey. Whenever Boxcutter started, there will be a context menu up here up top. There's also a series of options in this context panel that we haven't even began to refine yet, so we don't even mess with that. So the first things to notice up top are your cutters. You have cut and slice. These will definitely be getting expanded rapidly. So today we're looking at a very simple version of what Boxcutter is. So you have cut and slice. You have your shapes, box and circle. You have your operations, lock shape, draw, extrude, move, array, and bevel. You have two different modes of operation, destructive and non-destructive, and you have two draw methods, drawing from the corner and drawing from the center. Previously, when Boxcutter was first introduced, there was only 2D cut with 3D cut added. This is the option to decide whether you want 2D or 3D. This option decides if you want the shape to automatically expand after drawing. And this will make Boxcutter perform as it did in previous versions where you drew the shape and then it did the cut, versus the current version that you're about to see where it uses a live cut. Over here is what we call the behavior panel, where you have options pertaining to the behaviors and the way that Boxcutter will act as you go through using it. The array count is pertaining to the arrays, segments pertaining to the bevel. Sort modifiers will keep your modifiers in order and put the new bevels in front of those, or behind them, whichever you prefer. Auto smooth will auto smooth both the shape that you're cutting into and the shape that's being cut into it, ensuring that the result that you get looks smooth and has a nice rendered result. Multi-edit will allow you to cut through multiple objects at once, so this object's left on by default. So for 2.5 minutes, I've explained the UI of Boxcutter, so without further ado, let's get into it. So with this cube, if you have the mouse over the surface, left click and drag, let go, and then you move into an expand state. Even during this state, you can still rotate your view and get it exactly how you want it. Also, during this mode of draw and extrude, you can press X to swap between a slice or a cut. You can press B to bevel it, and you can press V to array it. And this is generally how Boxcutter is used, where you're drawing the box or circle and you're arraying it / beveling it. During the operation, you click to drop the shape into a locked state. So locked is basically in a hold state. So after you do an operation, it'll shift back into this hold where you can look around your view, discuss the cut, and further perfect it, go back into bevel, going back into array to just further decide how you want to get your cut. And then once you click it, it will apply it. So in addition to this, you can also drag a box down, and if you hold shift when you let go, that shape will be kept live. So now we can actually rotate this shape, go in edit mode, shift D, duplicate it over on the Y axis, and reuse it. So there will be a new Ngon tool coming that should make it easier to freeform shapes. However, at this time, that is one of the easiest ways to get a shape in an edit mode that you can from there modify. Now, in addition to drawing and expanding, there is also something called laser cut, which is you draw a 2D box in 3D, you let go and click, and it will just cut all the way through the object. So laser cut is a classic from 2.79, and over here it's been made even better. Now, even during this 2D 3D cut that we're laser cutting, I can press B before letting go, and shift into a bevel state where I can bevel this. And because of the new clamp overlap introduced in 702, we can now cut to the max and bevel to the max without any fear of overlap destroying our shape on the inside. So these options up top, for example, bevel will let you draw a beveled box on the next draw, which is very nice. Array, if you choose it as a tool, will also let you draw on an array, and you could still press V and go into this and modify it to a finer extent before applying it. So this is basically how to use Boxcutter in a nutshell, just the box portion. So if we jump over to circle and we change this back to lock, which is just our default, we have the option to draw from the corner, which I don't like so much for the circle, so we'll draw from the center. And from here we can actually bring out a circle and then drag it in, and that's our shape. Also, you can hold control and left click to repeat a shape that you just performed. So this comes in very handy for whenever you want to cut in notches or circles rapidly. This is probably one of my favorite features with this run of Boxcutter compared to its previous iterations of being able to repeat shapes just so rapidly. I mean, this is a box that we're just goofing off with in this video discussing how to use Boxcutter, but when you're making sci-fi floors or future crates or anything like that, just the speed is really one of the things that we try to focus on. So circle also supports all the same things, such as we can bring it in, we can press V to array, and during array you can also press F, which will flip it. So if you draw an array and it goes the wrong direction, you can press F to flip it to the other direction. So I apologize if any of this sounds confusing to any new users. There previously was a help that was displayed that we're going to be working on a more enhanced version of for this 2.8 era that should actually alleviate your problems and assist you with getting started in Boxcutter a lot quicker. But really for this sort of thing, just a little bit of practice, a little bit of left clicking. I mean, ever since Blender changed the defaults, we changed Boxcutter to accommodate the same thing. And with that change, it also gave us the outlook of being able to get this to work with pin-enabled tablets, maybe even an iPad someday. So I'm pretty sure left mouse click is going to be here to stay, but no matter what configuration that you're using, you should be able to flip it around for your liking. In fact, someone wrote us when we first put out an update talking about issues using this with the trackpad, and we were able to very quickly get a fix put in for that. So if you have any suggestions or requests, we are always more than open to hear them out and give them some consideration. So continuing on, the whole time I've been cutting this box, I've been cutting it in non-destructive. So if I were to take this box and tab into edit mode, it's just a pure box. I can move the box and it'll just mess things up because, you know, all these booleans are sitting still, but the box is moving. But I can also just tab into edit mode and just grab all the edges, add a couple of bevels in here. I mean, add a couple of loop cuts with Control R and scrolling the wheel just to get something like that. And we just modified just the base form of this box, kind of adding a nice round fillet to everything that's exposed just through keeping everything non-destructive. So destructive is something that I'm using a little bit less and less right now, even though I still love it. But I'm pretty sure that if we draw this circle out and cut it in, every boolean has been applied. So if we look at the modifier, everything is clean. So now we are really putting the finishing touches on this model. You can see the boolean appear for just a moment whenever you're working in this destructive mode. So I feel that destructive probably needs a little bit more behavioral refinement for us to make it truly efficient, but non-destructive is probably one of my favorite new additions of focus that is really showing some great promise over in 2.8. So working so forward seems to be something that can be avoided. So we'll go back over to non-destructive. I'm gonna click on shading. We're gonna change this to random, and let's mess with the slice. So I'm going back to box and I'm going back to slice. So we're just gonna draw a box, and I accidentally used center draw, but you know, let's ride that out. And here we are. We've made our slice, and because there's a boolean, that means that if we tap into edit mode, we see the entire mesh because this modifier is using an intersect. So if we apply that, we can actually jump over to destructive, and we can slice this the way that we want. So I'm going to jump this from corner over to, I'm going to jump it back over to corner from center, and we're just going to do a couple of cuts in here. And because HardOps isn't involved in this particular demonstration, I'm able to cut even harsher than usual. Usually if there's a bevel modifier present, which I would recommend for a fine fillet, we would be having a harder time making such indiscriminate cuts. But for the purposes of this video, I wanted to just kind of go over some of the basics of how you can get started with Boxcutter 702, maybe even take a trip to Box City, just while you wait for us to really get this party started, because we're at it every night discussing these tools. Every morning it's a 24-hour op. We're handing off to another team to rest, so the work continues. I'm dead serious about getting our 2.8 pipeline as concrete as 2.7 as soon as possible, so we can get back to work on my favorite part of HardOps and Boxcutter, and that's coming up with crazy enhancements that defy the rules of space and time. So right here you see, just as I've been blabbering and just cutting, that the result is just hypnotizing. I mean, I feel bad telling you that it's hypnotizing, but it's hypnotizing for me. I literally wake up in the morning and just come in here and start cutting boxes just like this, and it's just a fun time. So 2.8 can crash all day. As long as I can do this, it's fine. But really, 2.8 is far more stable than people give it credit for. So I'm going to select this shape, and we're going to look at this in an orthogonal axis. So if we draw a box, this is a slice, and you can see it turning the box yellow as we cut up it. So 2D is another aspect of Boxcutter that's worth keeping in mind and giving a try to. So if you start drawing away from the shape, you will draw a 2D box. Now right here, we've drawn the shape in 2D, starting on the surface. Now the interesting thing is, if we rotate the view, we are expanding as we are rotating the view. I don't know if you use programs like Fusion 360, but this is a particular behavior that I personally wanted because it was such a pleasant part of the experience. So you draw a box flat, align with the face, and when you rotate your view, you get your depth. And with that depth, we can come back over to destructive mode, because we've been talking about yellow box so long, and just laser cut. Of course, in this video I'm cutting a little bit more haphazardly than usual, so as a result I think it's giving me the business on this part right here. Let's see. Alright, we'll undo that one. Like I said, we are cutting very haphazardly today, with no mercy, and in destructive mode, which I personally haven't tested enough on my side. I am a non-destructive guy now. I'm going to be bragging about how all my stuff is non-destructive before long. Just kidding. Y'all know me. Red box for life. Very destructive. And so on my side, as I'm recording this video, I'm just like listening to music and just drawing boxes. But I hope this video suffices as far as helping users understand enough of Boxcutter to get started. There's a lot I could be saying about 2.8 and how to use Blender 2.8, but I'm in there learning it with the rest of you guys. So, every conversation I have with someone, I learn something new about what I can do in 2.8. And so right here during this cut, I do want to emphasize that if I were to press X, I can get that back. And if I press X, I can get rid of it again. You can press X to get it back, you press X to get it again. And this is something that I find to be of high importance. We are also putting a higher emphasis on undo redo behavior in addition, because that second choice that you make in the middle of a choice is also important to me. Like I'll draw a cut and I'm like, I like this cut, but I also want to array it, maybe on the X, and I also want to flip it, and I also want to lower the segments, and okay, I think I'm done. So that's kind of the ideology that I have in the background whenever I'm using these things, is that making the choice and following through is great, but also the ability to undo that choice, the ability to change that choice in the middle of that choice to affect your future, is definitely a big part of experimentation for me. So we're just cutting away, and if I wanted to, I can get an orthographic view and just kind of rotate the view using the numpad and really just drop one of these in there. However, in edit mode, I will probably need to press 2 and press Control E and just mark sharp, because in this video we're not using HardOps, so we don't have all those fancy workflow assistants to help us do our job. But Boxcutter's focus is definitely to operate as a standalone tool, but also to be stronger if you're using it with the rest of our tools, to make you glad that you got HardOps and Boxcutter together. So if you're watching this as a customer, thank you. Thank you for purchasing the product. Thank you for joining our cause. Every purchase helps keep this product alive. I can't express how important that is to me. Even the money I make doing 3D jobs goes into these tools and their development. I'm so heavily invested in their final outcomes because I believe that together we can make this into the greatest Blender magnet ever made, because everyone's looking at it from the outside, just wondering what we're gonna do next with this thing. And I'll tell you, let's make some freaking robots, buddy. A lot of robots. We're getting ready to have some robot fever. Like once Decal Machine is here, and Wazoo and everybody, the party can really start over in 2.8. But just look at this cube. I look at these cubes and I ask myself, how could I have done it otherwise? And the answer is I probably wouldn't have, because it's just so unusual. But with that, I think I was able to cover most of the fundamentals when it comes to using this tool. And with that, I'll see you next time.